11th, 2012 meeting of the Contractors State Licensing Board come to order. I'm Paul Schaffino, Board Chair. Would Mark Thurman, Secretary, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. John O'Rourke has an excused absence. Aaron, if you could take roll.
Here.
Here.
John Hancock. Here. Pastor Herrera Jr.
Here.
Matthew Kelly.
Here.
Bob Lamb.
Here.
Ed Lane.
Here.
Jim Miller.
Here.
Lisa Miller-Strom. Here. John O'Rourke. Bruce Russ. Frank Shutter.
Here.
Paul Schaffino.
Here.
Mark Thurman.
Here.
Now, will the members of the board, senior staff, and members of the audience please introduce themselves? I'd like to point out that members of the public, identification is not required. It's purely voluntary. Shall we start with the board members? Matt?
Matt Kelly, board member.
Mike Brown, legislation.
Lisa Miller-Strom, board member.
Rick Lopes, public affairs.
Pastor Herrera, board member.
Bob Lamb, board member.
Cindy Christensen, chief deputy registrar.
Joan Hancock, board member.
Paul Schaffino, board member.
Steve Sands, registrar.
Mark Thurman, board member.
David Vogt, Chief of Enforcement.
Dave Diaz, board member.
Jim Miller, board member.
Ed Lang, board member.
Karen Robinson, chief of licensing.
Frank Shutter, board member.
Aaron Eckert, executive office. Adrian Moran, enforcement supervisor, Norwalk.
Adrian Green, enforcement representative to police officer, Norwalk.
Dave Arthur, certified California.
Chief Law Enforcement Supervisor, Valencia.
Ken Grossbart, Appalachian Grossbart.
Excuse me one second. Ken, if you could, please make sure you give Sam our best wishes and let him know that the board is always thinking about him, and he really matters to us, and we miss him.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Rama Abraham, enforcement supervisor, East Norwalk. Mari Reyes, enforcement rep, West Virginia Investigation Center. Sally Muno, West Virginia Investigation Center supervisor.
Jim Anderson, supervisor, San Bernardino Investigative Center. Contractor.
Bill Quisenberry, public works, contract compliance, consultant.
Carlos Marquez, enforcement manager, Swift of Norwalk.
Doris Velasquez, enforcement representative, Norwalk Switch. Secretary Sherry.
Joe Richards, District Council 16.
Alex Beltran, district council 16.
Jerry Remedy, enforcement representative, Swift of Chris Acevedo, enforcement representative, Lee, outside the Swift investigator. James Remedy, enforcement investigator, Norwalk. Jesse Flores, enforcement manager, case manager.
Everybody's all chimed in? Wonderful. First, I'd like to congratulate Karen Ollinger, who is no longer Karen Ollinger, who introduced herself as Karen Robinson for the first time. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And also, Laura Zuniga's out, and Mike has stepped in, Mike Brown, which, Mike, welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
We have one clarification that I wanted to make with the committee chairs, that I do want to make sure everybody understands that you're presenting your own request for a motion rather than going through the board chair. Then I'll take a vote, but go ahead and present your own motions. You know them better than I do. Are there any other comments from the board members?
Yes, I do.
Pastor.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board members that I forwarded an article that appeared in the LA Times last Saturday evening on the online section concerning a real estate development company who apparently was involved in some questionable ethical business practices, basically with campaign money laundering to LA City officials. The name of the company, as stated in the article, is Advanced Development and Investment Company, also known as the Pacific Housing Diversified. And basically, I did forward the information to Steve and his some of his management folks, and also the chair, just for their information. Basically, the other aspect of this is, according to the article, that the builder was basically building for the city of LA and some other surrounding cities affordable multi-story housing projects. And the article did indicate that there was some questionable quality construction issues, which I thought maybe the board would like to know about. And David Folt did respond to me that they're going to look into it and take it from there.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. Sometimes we forget that the best resource that the Enforcement Division has are referrals from the community. And so the more we can do that, the better off the board is going to be as a whole. Any other comments from board members? Public comment section. This item is provided. Let's try the glasses. Sorry about that. This item is provided for public comment pertaining to items on the agenda as well as items not on the agenda. However, the board cannot take any actions on items not listed on the agenda. The CSLB welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the CSLB's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking any action on any agenda item. But if for some reason we forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item, a member of the public desiring to comment on the item should raise their hand and they will be recognized. Also, we will be limiting public comment to 5 minutes per individual. Are there any individuals that wish to address the board at this time? Please, sir. That's your microphone. It's your microphone right there.
My name is Dave Arthurs. I'm with a company called Repipe California, and I am the recent qualifier for our contractor's license. And I'm here to express my frustration, and I'm not sure that there's much that can be done with the process itself, but from the qualifier and from experience standpoint and dealing with everything, I also have reached out to Ms. Miller-Strunk here and had several conversations with her, and she suggested that I show up and discuss with you guys what has happened. Our contractor's license expired. We were changing our company from incorporated to LP, and our contractor's license expired October 31. We started the process back in June, latter part of June. We turned in an application to get the whole thing done. Went to investigative. We were one of, as I was explained, we were one of the 10% that got drawn. And my experience with that whole process was very frustrating. And the frustration was that the investigative person, I'm not sure he really truly understood what was there, and it may have been my fault for not explaining exactly my experience. But we got down to the wire. October 31 came and passed, and we just recently received it, and we had to stop work. I have 50 employees under my direction, and it cost us, several dollars to go with that whole process. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to talk about it was the experience. And I've been I'm a registered civil engineer with the state of California. I also have a contractor's license in the state of Hawaii. And I have designed projects, I've worked on projects, I've worked as a contractor my whole life. 25 plus years since I graduated from college. So with my college experience, they gave me 3 years of eligibility, and then of course the last 10 years. This particular gentleman seemed to think that my experience, because number one, I worked for a large engineering firm as a construction manager. I ran their construction management group, and so that experience he deemed not responsive to the application into a contractor. I disagree with that, but that's for another subject, another day. So we went to my 1.5 year experience with the existing contractor that I have, but since it was at the general manager level, he deemed it was too high up the supervisorial level, but I got there somehow at some point in time. And as I know I was very qualified. I've worked for large contractors in the past and at the supervisorial level, but I also worked as project managers, as engineer, as everything else. So he deemed that not responsive also. And so I had to go back to a previous employer and do the whole process all over again. And so it was very frustrating, as Mrs. Miller-Strunk 2 times, and she was very patient with me, and I appreciate all that. But I don't know what we can do. Is the system broke? That's the question I ask myself. I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining my experience, and maybe that was the whole problem. But anyway, that's about all I have to say. I haven't expressed myself very well.
1 minute, if you could, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that you were a contractor in Hawaii. Do you hold a license in California?
I hold the California license.
Yes.
I have a PE license in California. I am now the qualifier, yes, for our license at this point in
Prior to
time.
this, you did not have your own
I did
contract?
not,
And did
no.
anyone in your company, the corporation, hold a contractor's license?
Yes, we had a prior, but he had not disassociated, but was in the process of disassociating with the company. He no longer worked for the company, and that's the person they talked to. He was a disgruntled employee, and they talked to him and listened to what he had to say, and to me, that's not right.
So did he have an active contractor's license?
Yes, he did. It was active until the 31st of October, correct,
And-
this year.
And this investigative person, are you referring to somebody on the board, at the contractor's license board?
At the investigative unit, yes, in Sacramento.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate
Thank
it, and we do not ignore them, and we use the comments from the public to find out if there's a systemic problem in the system that we have. Sometimes the answer is no, and unfortunately it was frustrating for you. Sometimes the answer is yes, and there's something we can fix. So you gave us something to discuss, which we will. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
I just would like to clarify one thing, Paul. Mr. Arthurs did call me at my office a couple times. We had several conversations. I referred him to Karen's office, and they took care of it. I invited him here today because some of the specific issues we were discussing, I said, I can't discuss with you on the phone. So I said, come here today and talk about it, because I can't have this discussion with you privately.
And we will follow up with it. It won't be ignored. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, thank you. I'd like to proceed with the review and approval of September 11th, 2012 board meeting minutes. Do any board members have any comments regarding those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the board meeting minutes from September 11th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So approved. The next item on the agenda is the Enforcement Committee report. Enforcement Chair Dave Diaz and Dave Fote will give us the Enforcement Committee report. Again, I'll remind you that it will be your job to present your motions, and then I will take the vote.
On October 24th, 2012, the Enforcement Committee held a meeting in Sacramento. Highlights of the meeting included: Lisa Miller-Strunk briefed the attendees on her recent experience attending an arbitration hearing. Matt Kelly updated staff on his experience while observing a Northern California swift sting. Dave Fote, EDD Chief of Enforcement, Simon Ransom, I'll never get that. Simon, and 3 district attorney investigators provided a presentation on the Joint Enforcement Strike Force, otherwise known as JSIF, success in combating unlicensed, uninsured, and non-tax withholding contractors. At that time, we were able to recognize Northern Swift staff for their impressive statewide partnering success. Today, it gives me great pleasure to be able to recognize Southern Swift staff. Are they here?
Yeah, here.
Raise your hands. There we go. For many years, SWIFT investigators have worked effectively with partner state agencies within JSIF framework. In 2011, SWIFT was instrumental in developing partnering programs with the county's DAs to further enhance criminal filings against those operating in the underground economy. However, in 2012, SWIFT took this a step further, enhancing partnering with DAs and developing the Labor Enforcement Task Force. That brought in another state agencies to perform targeted inspections at active job sites. This extraordinary partnership has resulted in more than 1,000 proactive legal actions in 2012, the majority being criminal filings, but staff's innovations did not stop there. Within JSIP framework, January 2012, staff met with EDD and established Construction Enforcement Project. The CEP partners at the CSLB investigator, or partners a CSLB investigator with EDD agent to respond to leads, conduct sweeps, and partner on undercover stings. The results have been remarkable, with the discovery of more than $41 million in unreported payroll taxes, $17 million in unlicensed suspensions, and $10 million in tax assessment collected. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not specifically mention outstanding SWIFT support staff, Patricia Cisneros and Priscilla Corral, who have been instrumental in the unit's success. Also in attendance today is Soledad Gutierrez, who was selected from the new enforcement supervisor over the Southern Swift. We are very excited to have her joining the CSLB enforcement team. I would like to give a hand to the Southern Swift for their ingenuity, commitment, and partnering with others, and outstanding accomplishments. And we have a certificate of recognition form.
You guys need to come up.
All of Southern Swift. Don't be shy. You too, Soledad. You can't take credit, but you can get in the picture.
That's right. Raise your hand, you can come up. That's the new rule.
We know who you are.
Flag's always
Rick,
good for
where'd you like him?
The flag's good for pictures.
Right in front of here? Rick's our TV person. Right here. Carlos, lead the way.
Okay. In your recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Contractors State License Board, by successfully partnering with the Joint Enforcement Strike Force and Labor Enforcement Task Force, your effective collaboration with our partnering state agencies, local enforcement, and district attorney's office have made you an invaluable part of the enforcement Thank you for your hard work, dependability, commitment to consumer protection.
Thank you.
David Fote, Chief of Enforcement, will now provide the enforcement program update.
Excuse me 1 second. We have to have a motion for the...
Mr. Chairman of the Enforcement Committee, to please the board, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the Enforcement Committee meeting.
A second.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So approved. Now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We can turn to the vacancy update. Just wanted to report good news, and that is we've filled 9 of our peace officer positions. We have 3 to go. Bernard Lim out of our West Covina Investigative Center. He was named class president for the Special Investigator Basic Academy that's going on. I hope that one or more board members can attend the graduation where he'll be giving the graduation speech. It's probably in about 2 months, but I'll let you all know.
Yeah, I guess that would be great.
Do we have a date on that?
I neglected to get the date, but I can assure you, I will get the date. Yes, definitely.
Or you would have said it, I know.
I wonder if Sally Luna would know by chance, our supervisor's here.
The end of February, I'm not sure the date I'll say.
Okay. So, yeah.
That's no, having been to one of those, that's no small feat.
And this time I just wanted to talk a little bit about our accomplishments in general. The staff have done a tremendous job through some difficult situations as it relates to, one, we've had difficulty in filling vacancies, but you can see that majority of the vacancies have now been filled. But having the tools available to do their job. I left a handout at the back, and all the board members have this, and it's an issue paper that shows the reduction in vehicles. Fiscal year 05-06, we had 114 vehicles. At that time, the majority of enforcement staff had an assigned vehicle and they had a home storage permit. And you'll see over the last 6 or 7 years a dramatic reduction in the vehicles. We've gone from 114 cars to 55. Almost all of the home storage permits were canceled. The only exception were home storage permits that are assigned to someone that has home as headquarters. We have 4 investigators that are, probably on average about 100 miles from an office. They need to have a car available to them. We recruited them to work in a certain area. They work from their home. But we also have staff, some of whom are with us today, that are maybe 30, 40 miles from an office, perhaps even farther. But in Southern California, the difficulty in getting to the office can result in a 1 to 1.5 hour commute, even to go 30 to 40 miles. It's not conducive to being effective with our resources, with our staff, when they have to drive an hour and a half to pick up a car, an hour and a half back to the area they came from to meet with a consumer. And recently we learned that the 5 off-site storage permits we had that allowed staff to store cars off-site at police stations and fire departments were going to be canceled. That means our staff will not be able to have a car available in that location to be shared. That's a problem. We also have an aged fleet. The board members were all provided a paper that shows the amount of money we're spending to repair these cars. We're spending literally thousands of dollars to repair a 1998 Taurus that's probably worth $800. That's a problem. These cars are not safe. They need to be replaced. It's creating a problem in our ability to do our job. And I'm going to ask that one of our investigators share some recent stories with you. Nora Urias is a real star in the enforcement division. She's been with us for 18 years. She worked her way up through the ranks. She started out as an office assistant. She became a consumer service rep, and she's done a fine job as an investigator. I'm going to ask that Nora come up and talk about the experiences that she's had going out and trying to interview consumers and find contractors.
Hello. Again, my name is Nora Urias. I'm an investigator with the West Covina Investigation Center, and I'm here just to share my concerns about the vehicle that I personally drive at this time. I believe it's a 2000 Ford Taurus, and it's got major issues. I just took it in to get checked because as I drive, there's smoke coming out from under the hood, and it smells like it's burning while I'm driving. And I'm extremely concerned of my own safety, so that is why I'm here as well, to share that. But I took it in to the repair shop, and I was told that it's got about 3 to 4 major leaks. The transmission's leaking, the air conditioning's leaking, it's got a gasket leak. And if you look at the paper that Dave referred you to, it's also the vehicle that had the master cylinder issue. Our previous investigator was driving because we rotate these vehicles every 3 months, and that issue's coming up again. The thing about it is that, of course, I'm concerned driving the vehicle. I mean, I have to get to my appointments, not only locally, but we're asked to help other offices that are way beyond my area coverage. I just drove the vehicle to Rancho Mirage, which is obviously about 2-hour drive from my house, or from the office, which was about 210 miles round trip. All I can do is ask God to protect me, but I have to go to these appointments because there's no other spare vehicle in the office for me to drive. And again, I was asked to help the other office, so it wasn't like I can work a schedule out with the other investigators to get to these these complaints. So not only do I have a vehicle that is completely breaking down, but I'm also afraid to take it in because I'm afraid that they're not going to repair and they're just going to survey it, because then I will have no car. And that is another concern because we're already short vehicles in our office, and I'm sure in all the other offices as well. So, but that's not all. I also have to hit 1,000 miles a month on my vehicle, and that makes it difficult to be driving around that vehicle that isn't running well, and put another 1,000 miles on it. So because of my safety and my concerns, that's why I came in, and I wanted to share this with you. So I hope you guys take that in consideration.
Nora?
Yes.
Could you share your experience with a tow truck?
Yes, yes, Pomona Valley Tow, they know me. They know who I am. I call in same tow truck driver, Gus. Just tells me, be patient, I'll be there. But anyways, I've been in a tow truck twice in the last, month and a half, 2 months. And that's just because, I step out to grab lunch, I come back and the car won't turn on, or there's always something going on with the vehicle. So, or the tire blows out on the freeway as I'm driving. And these cars are pretty maintained. We take them in when they have to go in, oil changes and, tire repairs and all that, but they're just old.
Other than that, are they okay?
Yes.
Board recognizes Mr.
How many
Davis.
miles does it have on it?
This particular vehicle has 89,000 miles on it. But we have vehicles that are over 121,000 miles.
I've seen that. We have 11 of them, I think. Yeah.
Board recognizes Board Member Miller.
Thank you. I've managed a fleet of vehicles like this for investigators and inspectors in my career. And I just want to point out to the board that these are not vehicles. These are not freeway miles. These are 10 to 20 cold starts a day, driving around, stopping and going. Most vehicles just cannot handle that wear. So when you look at 120,000 miles, you're really looking at a vehicle that's got like the equivalent of 200,000 miles on it, because most people aren't driving to that, that kind of behavior. That, when we look at 120, and I have 110 on my car, but it's running great. It's all wide open driving. But when you're doing stop and go, investigative work back and forth, it tears the cars out to pieces. If they could last over 80,000 miles, we were fortunate, and again, our building services required 140,000 miles on our vehicles. And in response to your smoking vehicle, I was assigned a county car when they had 145,000 miles on it, and it started smoking, and I drove it till the engine seized, and they got me a new car.
Where was that?
Because that is the only way you can get a new vehicle, is for it to completely burn up on the road, because they will take it in, and building services or whoever it is with the state will make an attempt to fix it.
But you didn't hear that from Jim Miller.
No, I wasn't on the record. I really share her frustration, because it's a very, what she says, a very, very true story about what's on.
The chair recognizes Lisa
In the
Millerstone.
last month and a half, how many hours have you spent on dealing with the vehicle as opposed to dealing with your caseload?
Several hours.
10, 15?
Maybe 26 hours.
Okay, that's question number one. And question number two, you expressed concern that in the past, when there's been trouble with vehicles, people have been reluctant to say anything of nurse them along because they'd be surveyed and you wouldn't get anything back?
No, the vehicles get repaired. I said that my concern is to take my car in. I mean, it's going to go in. It has to go in. But my concern is that they will survey it, and I won't have
We'll be down one more.
Right.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
Right.
We are rewarding the wrong behavior. Not.
Well, it's more of a blanket. The chair recognizes Matthew Kelly.
I would say that if the enforcement representative has to look to the sky and ask God to get her there safely in a vehicle that the state has provided for her, it's up to each and every one of the board members to contact the legislators that they know, whether they be assembly or senators, and make them aware of this problem. Take the document that was provided for you today, forward the email that Stephen sent out yesterday or the day before, and let's try and see if anybody else will pick this up and do something about it, because it's not just this person's problem. It's the 108 investigators that we have, enforcement representatives that we have in the state of California, that this is a problem for. It impedes our ability to do the work that we're charged with doing, and it's something that we need to have a letter writing campaign or something.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'm sorry, Pastor. The chair recognizes Pastor Herrera.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I share your frustration, and it's really, really unfortunate that you're experiencing this, and I guess we're going to get direction of where you want to go with this issue. But I do think that the state must recognize that this is a liability that it has, and it could cost a lot more than purchasing a new vehicle to resolve a problem. Because if any of these employees get injured or in some way there's a major disaster, I mean, the state is going to be liable for that. And I just don't think that that's where the state should be going with this issue.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? I think I have one follow-up comment myself, if I could. Mr. Kelly was commenting that the best that we can do as a board is to contact the legislatures that we know. Is there anything else that we could be doing, David, that could get a crowbar out to help the process? Is there anything that we can be doing other than contacting legislators?
Well, I just wanted to comment on a couple things real quick that Nora said. She mentioned the 1,000 miles a month. The reason that's critical is we met with General Services, and they told us that if we were to be in compliance with their requirements, meaning at least 70% of our cars are being driven 1,000 miles a month, or 80% of the available days, that they would look favorably upon replacing these cars. We've done that. And we also know that the Department of Insurance has recently received 30 new vehicles within the last month. So we've met their requirements. My understanding is we have the money available to replace these cars. We've done everything everyone's asked as far as sharing of vehicles. And I think now, if we can give to the people that make these decisions, it will be very effective. Steve Sands and I are hopefully going to meet with the secretary next week and perhaps be able to discuss this. But anything that you could do just to encourage them to approve the replacement of these cars would be very helpful.
If I might, I'd like to recommend the board hold off on contacting the legislature, because this is really, we need to exhaust the administrative remedies. The unions are doing a meet and confer with the administration at the end of this week regarding the vehicle issue. This is not just the contractors board, it's the medical board, the dental board, the division of investigation. It's the entire union. So I would recommend that the board hold off. Let's see what happens with the meet and confer. Wait and see what happens until David and I meet with the agency secretary. The department is very supportive of our problem. When we do exhaust the issues, we need to protect our employees. We need to figure out how to meet our mandate and fulfill our mission. At that point, you know, we'll look at the legislature, whatever, but I'd like to encourage you to wait. And some of you have contacts with the administration. I think we should start there. Thanks.
I have one other question, if I might. Is there anything that David can do as a supervisor to mitigate any liability that the board would have with cars from General Services that are subpar, unsafe, and the employees of the board feel the need to pray to Jesus Christ before they get in the car? To me, since that's been brought to the board's attention, we need to do something to mitigate that, whether it is we direct them not to drive a car they feel is unsafe, and we need to make some kind of decision that keeps them safe. I would hate to have them driving a car after they've come to this board and somebody get hurt, God forbid, in an accident, when the brakes fail, when something else happens, it catches on fire in the middle of a freeway, and a wreck occurs. To me, it seems almost insane to have them driving cars that are that unsafe. And as a board member, I would feel terrible if something happened to one of our people that was driving a car in that condition. I don't care if they say you have to drive it 1,000 miles a month. If it's a piece of junk, it's a piece of junk. And it needs to sit parked until we get new cars or direction from whoever's going to provide these cars in the legislature or government. There's no way we should be letting our people drive unsafe vehicles. None. Zero. Whether we have to rent them or whatever, something to keep them safe is what I think has to be job one. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other comments?
I have one last comment. I'm not sure where the administration stands on this, but I know my local newspaper on Saturday, I believe it was just last Saturday, did a quick little vignette on some legislators that were fixing their own state cars up and then purchasing them. And I suggest that we start with them as our target audience for assisting us with these people that are working for the board. And, I think this is a good start. I also would suggest that, I don't know how you feel about it, that maybe we get ready with some affidavits from our employees elaborating on their experience, the wasted hours not being able to do their job because of the amount of driving they're doing, the wasted hours sitting by the road waiting for somebody to come along and help, and the condition of the car, those three things. And then follow, so that we're ready when Steve and all launch this campaign.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Mark Thurman.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that this board direct staff to study this matter immediately, if not sooner, and come back with a full report on this as soon as possible.
Got a second?
Hey, Don, can they make a motion on that since it's not agendized?
Well, it's my understanding that if it's...
They can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So approved. Board is directed to research the matter accordingly and report back to the board, preferably by the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Chief?
I think we're okay. Just turn,
That's right.
yes, on page 2, just a real quick update on some of the interesting cases that our Intake Mediation Center handles. You'll see the first one that deals with what we call secondary damage. We have a contractor that sprayed gunite all over somebody's roof. They didn't install the roof, but yet they damaged it. And this is something that our staff are very good at trying to mediate resolutions to these type of complaints. It keeps the parties out of the civil arena. And you'll see here they were able to obtain a fairly significant settlement of $15,000. The one right below it is quite interesting. It's a Fannie Mae-owned property, and a contractor got the contract to do interior painting. There's a little bit of a miscommunication on which house needed to be painted. And he went to the wrong home, broke in, painted the interior, destroyed the floors, and that cost him $10,000 to correct. And so, but it really is a service that our staff provides to both of the parties to resolve these type of disputes. The third one on page 3 is a little more routine, where we have a roof that failed. The contractor did pay the amount of money it would take to replace the roof to satisfy that customer instead of performing the work themselves. And just to kind of summarize the success that they've had, and this is in large part because of the training that you've all supported as board members and their commitment to resolving this disputes. Through October, they've helped injured parties recover $10,500,000, and that's about approximately $1 million more than they were able to help get returned for all of last year. So they're having a record year in the Intake Mediation Center in resolving consumer complaints, hitting the mark of 38%, which is 8% higher than the board objective. On page, this is not page 5 on the page number, just wanted to talk a little bit about what our West Covina staff has accomplished with, we call it the Avi Goslin investigation. Sally Luna, the supervisor, many of you have probably seen her picture. Raise your hand, Sally. She's really been the leader of this. A lot of her staff are present that have put together this investigation, which it's been very labor intensive. I'm not sure if Greg Alexander's here. Greg Alexander was an investigator of a Ventura office that had recognized a pattern of telemarketers that were victimizing the public. And it took time to figure out who was behind it. The individual behind it had been previously revoked, hiding in the shadows and working under licenses that had been issued with what we're now calling really absent qualifiers that had been just put on to get the licenses issued. Something I learned at lunch today is the term rehashing, and that's what they did with these boiler rooms. Is they had contractors, they had individuals calling up on behalf of a contractor to ask if you need paint, you need a roof. If you don't need that, what might you want down the road? Then they would call back under another licensed entity to secure that contract. But they've caused harm to a lot of people. And pleased to hear this morning that 5 of those that were identified as being part of this scheme have pled out to felonies, primarily conspiracy, and that they're conspiring to commit a crime with unlicensed Avi Goslin. He hasn't pled out yet. The investigation continues, but it's one of the significant highlights that we had last year. And just one final thing on that, when they served the search warrant, they found a new contractor called Horizon Builders. And when they called the qualifier on that license, that qualifier was shocked. He had no idea he was running a boiler room in Bakersfield with 20 people making phone calls. So it kind of lends itself later in the meeting to the ledge proposal that could address some of that. But it's really unfortunate that we have people that are gravitating to construction to commit these type of crimes. And just on page 7, it's an example on the bottom of how we're using our industry expert program. In this case, it was to help the Whittier Police Department with something that they became aware of, some illegal activity, but they didn't have the background or the resources to put the case together. The complaint was received by the CSLB. We used the industry expert program to establish the value of the work that was performed, which was significantly less than the amount of money paid. And talked to some of the board members, had the opportunity to talk to Deidre Green, our newest peace officer, this morning, and that's something that she'll be looking to do more of, is to partner with the local law enforcement so she's a resource. When they uncover something out in the field or somebody comes into their police department, they'll know who to call to get the information to put that case together. On page 8, just a highlight for Orange County. Many of you were at the board meeting a year ago where we learned about the success they've had in prosecuting our cases. And this is one where we're trying to get a substantial restitution of tens of thousands of dollars for an injured party. That restitution hearing was continued until next week. On page 10, just to highlight, it's only just an update, board objective to dispositioning our complaints within 100 days of being received. We're substantially in compliance for the year. You'll see we've increased a little bit. We're hoping to, the goal though, and the enforcement staff are really stepping up, is to close 2012 with less than 100 cases exceeding 270 days. We talked a little bit about the SWIFT staff stats, and that we're having a record year, and it really lends itself to the partnering and the commitment that staff have had to working with others. On page 15, if you have a chance to take a look at some of the training that we provided to staff, I did want to discuss some of the proposed training, and many of you are instrumental in the legislation that is going to provide the ability for our investigative center staff to issue the notice to appear. This is so critical to their ability to work with the local prosecutors, but not only will it help them to get more of their cases, more of their consumer harm cases prosecuted by local DAs, but it's going to give them the enhanced identification. Now, there's training being set up in Southern California for the first week of February, and many of you have met Doug Galbraith and Mike Franklin. Doug will be the lead on that, putting that training together. It's equivalent to the Penal Code 832 training, which is what's required in order to get the enhanced ID. We're real excited that the majority of our staff have already completed the PC 832, or they're scheduled to take that course the first week of February. And happy to answer any questions. That would conclude the enforcement update.
Mr. Chairman, if it would please the board, I would move approval of the enforcement update.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved.
Thank you. The chief vote will discuss proposed minimum peace officer training requirements now.
Historically, or I should say ever since we've had peace officers, the peace officer authority at the board, the peace officers have either completed the 17-week academy, the special basic investigator course at Golden West College, or they've gone through a regional police academy. The difference is the SBIC in Huntington Beach is a 17-week course, and it's geared towards being a peace officer for the state. The regional academies are 25 weeks in length, and it's geared towards certain crimes that we would investigate, but also high-speed chases, hostage situations, a lot of things that I hope that Deidre Green will not be involved in. So the concern, though, is if we have staff going through the 25-week course, they're likely going to be recruited by others, number one, and two, it's very physical, and some of our existing employees may not be able to complete it. Having said that, our supervisor, Vicki Kaur, is doing a fantastic job. As many of you know, she's at the San Diego Police Academy, and she's certainly doing well, and we have every expectation she's going to graduate. But what we're asking the board to consider is perhaps kind of a hybrid, in that we don't know if the last 2 years, the SBIC was not offered because they didn't have enough attendees. Local law enforcement doesn't use it, and some of these state agencies, such as the Department of Insurance, are sending their employees through the regional academy, or many of them that come to apply for a peace officer job have already completed that. So they haven't had the course the prior 2 years. There's one ongoing now. We don't know if there'll be one next year. So we're asking the board to consider is that at a minimum, they have to complete Penal Code 832, which, of course, many of our staff have. That's a 5-day course. They would also have to take specific learning domains, and this is part of the post-course that's offered at a regional police academy throughout the state. Not all of it, because we don't need all the physical, the chasing and the high-speed chases and that, but we do need certain elements of it. We'd ask that they take that, and then at such time as the SBIC academy is available, that the staff would need to complete it. So we're hoping that you'll look at that as a reasonable approach so that we can continue to promote, when appropriate, our staff from within to becoming peace officers here. Yes.
Chair recognizes Jim Miller.
So the PC 832 is still a one-week class then? Still a traditional, was it You were throwing out weeks there, and I wasn't too sure what they applied to.
Yeah, the Penal Code 832, in the statute, in the Penal Code itself, for the board to appoint someone as a peace officer, they must complete PC 832 because they don't carry a weapon, so they can't qualify. That's a 5-day course. Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, David, you didn't indicate how many of these learning domains you thought that our people would have to complete. And is each one a 5-day course, or what is your estimation on the time commitment that would be needed to be able to complete the Module 3 training or learning domains that would be necessary?
When Steve Sands and I met with Mike Gomez, who at the time was a bureau chief for Post, it was my understanding that to complete these domains could take up to 30 days, perhaps a little bit longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's less than 17 weeks.
Yes.
There's 18 different learning domains.
Are you looking for a motion on this?
No, well.
Yes.
Just about.
Let me finish off this.
Okay.
The Enforcement Committee is requesting that the board approve training requirements for CSLB peace officers. The board is being asked to approve minimum training standards for CSLB peace officers as follows. After successful completion of background investigations, candidates may be appointed as a CSLB peace officer upon successful completion of post-approved PC 832 training. Within the first year after the appointment, i.e. during the probationary period, CSLB peace officers must successfully complete either SIBC Academy, if available, or post-Module 3 training. Failure to complete these specific training requirements will result in the removal of the peace officer position, and that's when I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Okay.
I think you have one more item, David?
Yep, one more item. As part of the 2012 to 13 strategic plan, the Enforcement Division committed to developing an educational letter to be sent to consumers who repeatedly hire unlicensed operators. The letter was presented to the committee on the 24th of October committee meeting. After the suggested edits, the letter has been revised and has since been approved by the DCA's legal unit. Special thanks to Board Member Pastor Herrera and assisting staff in developing this letter. Chief Vogt will provide an overview of the letter.
Yeah, just a little background. On all consumer complaints, we call up the person that filed and explain our proposed closing disposition that will be reviewed by the supervisor, and then a written letter is sent to the party that filed the complaint. And so what we're proposing is that when we've investigated a consumer complaint that resulted in an administrative citation to somebody that was unlicensed, we would send a letter to them that would educate them on the need to verify the license status before they hire someone else. It'll serve two purposes. One, it will hopefully enable that consumer to educate their family member and friends on the need to hire someone that's licensed. But two, it'll discourage someone from continuing to hire unlicensed individuals to do work, which is a problem. It's the majority of people that file a complaint, they do it perhaps naively, but we do have a certain number of them that have rental properties, and they have other properties that are looking to save money, looking to hire someone that's not licensed, doesn't have workers' comp. And what this letter tells them is that as a member of the Joint Enforcement Strike Force, if we get a second complaint or find they're continuing to hire people that are unlicensed, we will make a referral to our partners. And the labor code's very clear. If you hire somebody that is not licensed, but that work was required to be done by a licensed contractor, that you are their employer. You're responsible to withhold payroll taxes. You're responsible to have workers' compensation insurance. And if you don't, then the partnering state agencies will investigate you, and we do have examples where they've done just that, and they have made assessments.
Chair Diaz, may I make a motion to approve this letter, this consumer warning letter requiring consumers of their potential employer status?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So approved.
And then also, I would like to thank David Vogt, Chief Vogt, and all his staff for their outstanding work that's been done. I actually had a couple of people call recently, nothing to do with my trade, and bring up some other issues on job sites and stuff, and the staff has just been great and investigating them and following through with everything, and it's been amazing. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we'd like to take a short bio break for 5 minutes and then reconvene, please.
Brett, can I see you for a second?
I guess.
See if we can rally the troops. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Public Affairs Committee report. Public Affairs Committee Chair Pastor Herrera and Chief Rick Lopes will give us the Public Affairs Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and following your directive, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make some comments on the committee report, and then I'll ask for a motion, and then I will have Rick Lopes give us an update.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Right, well, first of all, I want to thank the committee, Joan Hancock, Bob Lamb, and Lisa Miller for participating in our meeting on October 24th. We also had a couple of board members there, Matt Kelly and Ed Lang. Thank you very much for being there, and also Mr. Lopes and his staff that participated in this meeting. I'm just going to give you a summary of what happened at the committee meeting, since you do have the report in front of you. Basically, we read about the staffing. At that point in time, there were 2 vacancies, and as Mr. Lopes will report to you, today they are fully staffed. Congratulations. I'm sure that they were very much needed, and they'll be able to move forward on some of the objectives that you have as far as your strategic plan. Also in the report, there is a blurb on the delegation from China that came to see the Contractor State License Board in action there, and apparently there was also another one that came after that from Singapore. We also discussed the new features in the website. There is, I guess, a state initiative to have veterans a little bit more focused as far as a priority for employment, and the Contractor State License Board has placed on its homepage a veterans application assistance icon, so that veterans, if they have some experience in the contracting field, they can make it easier for them to get a license and give them some assistance in that area. There was also an update on the new and updated brochures. We also spoke a little bit about the Senior Scam Stopper program that has very definitely been a success, and has really developed a very good liaison and support from our legislators in Sacramento. The committee spent a good part of the time discussing, and we had a very, very good discussion on the Contractors Outreach Program. This was a program that was approved by the board in April of this year at the strategic planning session. And in order to get things going, the staff at Public Affairs first conducted a survey. Rick will be sharing some of the results with you momentarily. And also we discussed about the next steps that will be coming forward as far as this initiative. As I said, we had some very, very good discussion about the logo, also about some information sharing with the contractors, which will be discussed also by Mr. Lopes. Therefore, I ask for a motion to approve our reports.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Mr. Lopes, take it away.
Thank you. We'll get through this, since a lot of the information in our report was covered at our committee meeting. If you direct your attention to page 1, and as Pastor did mention, we are now fully staffed in public affairs. We've made 2 hires. Both of the 2 gentlemen we've hired started within the last month, and so right now they're going through their training, really adapting. Well, we feel very excited to have them there. They've got a lot of talents that the board, you're really going to be seeing their contributions in the months ahead. And we're excited to have both of them on board. As Pastor also mentioned, on November 15th, we did have a delegation from Singapore that came and visited with us and spent a lot of time, a lot of questions on licensing. Karen spent a lot of time answering. You can see the write-up there. I'm not going to go through it now, but it was very interesting how the priorities and what's important to them in Singapore right now are completely different. It was really educational, and we enjoyed. The best thing we enjoyed about it, selfishly, is the fact that the main language in Singapore is English, so we're really able to communicate well with them. And it just kind of helped speed the process and allowed us to cover a lot of things in just a couple-hour period. On page 2, the information is there on the Veterans Application Assistance Program. This is something that is started up by our licensing division. We've supported it in public affairs by creating some pages on our website, and that's a program that they're doing to help veterans, especially in the area of using their military experience as a part of a qualification towards getting their license. Then also you see the information on the application instructional video. This is a video that we produced with the assistance of the Public Affairs Office at the Department of Consumer Affairs. And we've created these to help people applying for a license to give them instructions on how to get through the different portions of our application. We're now going to be trying to track and see if having this video available will actually help decrease the number of rejected applications we have. So that information is now being tracked, and so we'll look forward to the next meeting being able to report to you. Hopefully we've had some effect. But as you can see, the numbers here on page 2, these are the number of times that the individual videos. We have the video in its entirety, then we break it down into the different sections. So you can see as of the end of last month, the entire video has been viewed more than 5,000 times, and you can see the breakouts. These are additional viewings of just specific chapters. I'll skip over page 3, but there's just the latest on the social media. On page 4 is our email alert feature, and just the numbers steadily do continue to grow. On page 5, in the news releases, you see the news releases that we have done since the last board meeting. Also, some brief information on the October 19th press event that we had after the California Blitz sting operation in the San Francisco Bay Area. We got some pretty good wide coverage of that around the state, and especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. A number of newspapers, radio, and television stations were there. Now I want to spend a little bit of time letting the board know in this forum about something that the Public Affairs has served in support of work being done by both licensing and enforcement, and also our informational technology. This is a scam that we've discovered that people targeting are at first applicants, but it also appears that they are targeting our licensees as well. So that's led the board to do a number of things which Public Affairs has been in support of, and since we've kind of been on the front lines of getting the word out about this, I just wanted to share with you some of the things that the board has done and what we think might be coming down the road and what effect we've already seen so far. The main problem is these people were originally targeting our applicants, and we made information by law. We are required to make information on applicants available to the public at the point where we've actually accepted it. There's a point where we actually receive an application from somebody trying to get their license, but a number of those, as I mentioned, those applications are rejected. So it's when we actually accept a completed application is the point that information becomes public record. What we've been able to discover is when we actually open our file and give them a number where they can actually monitor the progress of their application, that information was being made available if you kind of did this backdoor search on our website. We were able to close down that back door and make sure now that we're not giving out any information to the public on applicants, names, addresses, that kind of information until the point where it is legally required by law, and that's when we actually accept, or as we call it, post the application. So one of the biggest things we wanted to do with this information that we had about these people being targeted, what was happening is they were contacting the applicants and saying things to the effect of, we are calling you from the board and we need to set up your test date, but in order to do that you need to pay X number of dollars to us by credit card right now. And so they passed themselves off as being from the board and getting people to put down hundreds of dollars on their credit cards over the phone. So one of the first things we wanted to do is we wanted to try to get the warnings out to them. And as I said originally, when we do receive the application at the front end, is we do send a letter out to those applicants to acknowledge that they have we've received their application. You can see in the little packet that we've given out, the letter on page 2, we've updated that letter to include information on the scam. So you see the draft, but actually this thing is now in production, so it is now being used. So we've got that out. We also issued an industry alert to let the industry know that this thing was going on, and I'll talk in a moment about how we think they're targeting some of our licensees and why that is a real concern for us now. But we did issue an industry bulletin, industry alert to go out to the industry. It's posted on our website. There's many different pages and places on our website that we've got these warnings. We also have the warnings in the actual lookups. When you go to the applicant goes to look up the status, you're going to get warnings there. So we're trying to do everything we can. And at last I've heard, it appears that we're not getting many, if any, complaints from the applicants. We feel like the combination of things we've done has really slowed them down. One of the other things, the concern is now they are turning their attentions to licensees. It can be a somewhat easy process for them to figure out, since all of our licensee contact information is public record. The addresses, the phone number of record is all on our website. And so it may not be too difficult for people who wanted to try to target people who are coming up for their license renewals. And that's one of the areas that we're concerned about. So you also see in the package there's a page that has kind of in big red letters, it's the third page in, it says warning. We've now included a warning that goes out in all our renewals. We send out renewals to licensees 2 months before the license expires to let them know that they're coming up for renewal. And so you can see on that we were telling them about the scam and that we will never ask for credit card information over the telephone. And you can see the actual renewal fees. So these are the only fees that these people should be paying in order to renew their license. In some cases they're misleading the licensees to believe that there's something like continuing education or some other fees that are in place that they need to pay over the phone before they can renew their license. So we're now turning a lot of our attention to trying to warn our licensees. We've got an upcoming newsletter that information will be in, and we're looking for any way that we can try to get the word out. And so we would encourage anybody watching this meeting or hearing about this in the industry to try to do what you can to help get the word out to our licensees so they don't become victims. The last item you see in that packet is a draft of a letter that we're planning to send out to the various different license instruction schools and surety companies, because they're the people heading back to the applicant side of it. They're the ones who really take a look at those posting lists and the list of new applicants that we have, because they are using that as a means to get potential customers. And so we want them to be available of what's happening, and the fact is that we are telling them that we are complying by law and we're making this information available as the law states that we need to do. On the outside chance, if any of them were getting information beforehand through those doors that I'd mentioned that we've now gotten closed, so that information is not getting out earlier than it's required to. So that gives you just a little bit of an overview of the scam. We do feel that there is reason for our licensees to be concerned, and we do again appreciate any assistance that we're able to get from the industry in helping get that word out, or any ideas of other things that we can be doing in order to get that information out.
Chair recognizes
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rick, should you, as this warning notice, should you also say by email? Because maybe some of the contractor or potential folks may have a website, and these scammers may contact them by email. You just add over the phone or by email.
We can certainly look to that. I don't know that we know of that happening as a thing, but I can certainly check with our enforcement staff to see if that's a way that we feel people are getting contacted.
Well, if it's proactive, in other words, so that you close that door too, just in case. Because we do get a lot of emails from different people asking for information.
Okay.
So that might be a one that you may like. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Board Member Miller.
Just on this, on the same note, and I don't know if it's just a comment, but On the letter, you say, or by calling CSL, the toll-free automated line. I'm wondering if maybe you should have that further down in the letter to say, if you're having difficulty with the website call or getting your PIN or something. So I don't know if we want to encourage more people to call in or not at this point. So just a thought. But I mean, you're kind of giving option A, option B, but I think the intent really is to do it all online.
Sorry, Jim, are you looking at which
I'm
of the two
looking
letters
at
are you looking at?
the one. This
The
one.
second page. Okay, the school.
Yeah. Just to maybe help the automated line a little bit and those responses.
Just to clarify that, Jim, we have an automated system where they call in and they don't talk to an agent. They just put their PIN number in and it gives it to them over the phone.
Oh, well then.
Yeah.
I thought there was a real person there.
Not call.
No.
Okay, moving on to page 6 of the Public Affairs Report. Just wanted to note a couple areas in the publication highlights. There are, one of them is our stop order brochure, which we are giving out whenever we issue a stop order. The enforcement staff gives them a brochure that explains what a stop order is and what they need to do to take care of that. We have that translated into Spanish. It is currently being printed at the Office of State Publishing, so we should have that in the hands of our staff shortly. We have also finalized a sting brochure, which we will give to the people anytime we'll catch them in a sting operation or a sweep operation. We've printed copies out and given to our SWIFT staff, but it is now currently being printed, so they'll have the formal printed copies in the very, very near future. On page 7 in our outreach highlights, you see the list of senior Scam Stopper events that we've done since the last board meeting. Jane Kreidler from our staff's been very busy. We've already passed the number of seminars that we put on all of last year, and she's already starting to book, into next year as well. On page 9, our contractor outreach program, Pastor did talk a little bit about this. We went into a lot of depth in our committee meeting. So there's a lot of information here. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm not going to go through a lot of this. But one of the main things that we did and we reported in our committee meeting was the phase 1 of which was the conduct research. We had an online research survey that we had out, and we asked our licensees to take part. We've had a couple thousand different surveys have been taken, and if you can move back towards page 19. Without getting into details of the different things that we got from the survey, it's kind of moved us to the next step. And as you can see there, what we're doing right now is we are determining the different print materials that we're going to be creating to be part of a marketing packet that we'll make available to our contractors, with the main goal is information that will help them educate their potential clients about the importance of hiring licensed contractors and the risks if they don't. And you can see the checklist of items. These are the ones right now that we're looking at, the print materials that we're going to be creating. We are also in the process of developing a new State of California licensed contractor logo. We got overwhelming support from the people in the survey saying that was something they were interested in and they felt that they would use. So you see the timelines that we've kind of set, and one of the great things about us now being up at full staff is we're going to be able to devote the resources we need to get this done, and also to work on a lot of the other projects, especially in the publications area. That we've had a couple of our main publications that have been on hold that we've wanted to redo and update. And we're going to be able to do that as well now, so we're very excited about the prospects for the next few months. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. That completes the Public Affairs Program update.
Any questions from the board members?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next item on the agenda, are we good, Pastor? That's the end of your...
Do you need a motion for the update?
Nope, no motion for the update. Legislative Committee report is next. Legislative Committee Chair Lisa Miller-Strunk and Mike Brown will provide this report.
Okay. Thank you. We need to first start off with the review and approval of the November 19th, 2012 Legislative Committee meeting that occurred in Sacramento, and several of us called in. It was a little interesting. We had some public comment section where a gentleman named Dave Jenkins came and addressed the committee on about a complaint he filed against a contractor who worked for an insurance company. And Karen Hughes visited us again about her continued interest in the arbitration process. And I know Dave has worked diligently with her to address her concerns, and we will probably go into that in a little more depth later. We looked at 5 legislative proposals, which I will go into because it's going to require an emotion after each one, of which the committee unanimously voted to approve all 5, or put them forward to this committee, the whole committee for approval. So that being said, that was the minutes. I can ask for a motion to approve them.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So approved.
Thank you. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. We're going to 5 on this list here, plus there's an additional one that we're going to be calling, that's in your packet, that we're going to be calling Karen on about a little bit later. The first one, and these are all to amend the Business and Professions Code. The first one calls for an amendment of BMP Code Section 7027.3, the illegal use of license information. And when you read this, it's kind of makes a lot of sense, but apparently, if you illegally use license information, there's a criminal misdemeanor component to it, but Dave's hands and his department's hands are tied for the administrative citation portion of it. And interestingly enough, today, when I was walking through the enforcement office, there was the half page that looks like a ticket, and so that's how you guys write administrative citations. And this will allow the enforcement division to write these administrative citations and for specific things. Dave, if you want to go into this a bit further.
Well, just that we routinely encounter unlicensed and also licensees that are under a suspension that have gone to the internet or in some way edited a license, a wall license, or some other document to present to their customers that they're licensed. It's been a criminal offense to do that, but the DAs with resource challenges won't always file the complaints. We're just simply asking, let's allow our enforcement staff to issue administrative citations for the violation if the DA won't accept it.
Yeah, Lisa, on 7027.3, and maybe it's buried in legislation somewhere, but it talks about cancel, revoke, suspend, or fraudulently altered.
Can you speak up, Jim?
I'm sorry.
Your lights on here.
On 7027.3, it talks about displays, causes, or permits to be displayed, or has in his possession a canceled, revoked, suspended, or fraudulently altered license. Was there any discussion or thought about inactive licenses? Or is that just not even an issue?
No, it can be added, and it's a good point. Just let me make a little point of clarification here. What you see here in the proposal is existing law. Section 119 of the BMP Code already provides for criminal prosecution for any violation of any of these acts. So essentially all we're doing is just taking that same language, we put it into our own law to provide for administrative citations or administrative action. I think you raise a good point. We can add language to that, and it actually allows me to segue into to make the point that all of the proposals that you see here, these are drafts, and Lord knows how many times they're going to change before we get through the process if they get approved. So.
I don't know if I want to add, just because the process is so tedious, I don't know if I want to add any new language to something that's already somewhere existing.
Well, we'll take a look at it. Staff will take a look, see if it needs to be added in, we can do that. So duly noted, and we'll take it from there.
But I think as a point of clarification, the way we're approaching this is approving the concept by motion, not necessarily the exact language.
Right. The language is going to change Again, it's going to change, Lord knows how many times, but conceptually, that's what you're going to be, that's what we're asking for approval of.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take these one by one?
Taking them one by one.
Then on the subject of BMP Code Section 7027.3, I would move that we approve the concept and approve staff to continue working on the language.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So approved.
Okay, the second one we addressed was BNP Code Section 7031 and others, the definition of unlicensed activity. And I'm going to defer to Mike on this for.
Okay. Enforcement has requested a proposal that would assist them in furthering the enforcement mission. As it stands right now, enforcement staff is unable to pursue individuals who continue to practice with an inactive license or a suspended license in terms of a criminal prosecution. What we're proposing to do with this language is to identify the term duly licensed and ultimately thereby what is unlicensed by including in that definition people who are contracting on a suspended license or who are contracting under an inactive license. That's one issue. At the same time, by providing that definition in the license law, it's intended to, it will also address an issue that's problematic in the civil arena, and that is to say that consumers are not really being given a fair shake, if you will, by the fact that there's no definition in the civil arena of what constitutes duly licensed, and that term is used within the license law in several places, and specifically with regard to civil cases. So by what we're trying to do is to make certain that the actions that take place in the civil arena match the administrative provisions of the law, and that way comes down to really one thing. At a contractor who is licensed in a particular classification will get paid for doing work in that classification, and the consumer is not going to be questioned or is not going to be led to believe that that contractor may be disgorged for doing work in that classification. That's the essence of the two situations. If David wants to expand with regard to the suspension, or the suspended licenses and the inactive licenses, particularly with regard to the problems that they've had at the district attorney level, I would welcome those comments.
Thank you, Mike. One thing we've been reporting on at board meetings is the outstanding liability suspension program and the success that we've had in getting monies paid, but that doesn't always happen. We have consumers that are going to court and obtaining judgments, and those judgments are often not being paid, and that results in suspension of the license, and that contractor is still out there contracting under that suspended license. We're also partnering very closely with EDD, and you'll see in your packet where we've suspended licenses now this year for $27 million in outstanding tax liability. Problem is, many of them are still out there contracting under suspended licenses. And where it's most prevalent is in the public works arena. It's absolutely amazing that we have these public work contractors that owe trust funds and they owe prevailing wages in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those licenses are suspended, but yet they're still out there bidding and getting jobs. And I've met with the California District Attorneys Association, and they would appreciate clarification so that when we have egregious offenders like those, we can go after them and charge them with the misdemeanor that they deserve.
There is nowhere in the license law where the term duly licensed is clarified in any way, and it's provided for a certain amount of ambiguity both in the civil arena and it's been problematic for the administrative arena as well, as David just explained. So what we're asking the board to do is to prove the concept, the staff go forward with this proposal. You have handouts, their draft languages for this proposal. One of them is conforming amendments, and the most critical one is amends 7031 and adds 7026.4 to the B&P code to define duly licensed and unlicensed. And actually, the intent is to conform the two sections of law so that there's clear guidance as to what is duly licensed in the state of California.
Any further board questions or comments?
I do. I'm sorry, you said in the handout?
There's 2 draft handouts, and all this is tied together because the definition needs to be clarified throughout.
And this is,
BNP.
again, this is draft language. It's pretty much within the realm of how the board staff sees this concept. But in terms of the specific language itself, it may change or probably will change a few times before we get through the process.
Again, just to reiterate, we're approving concept and the approach, not the specific language.
So this draft language is really specific to whether or not the person is duly licensed, and that's
Duly
it.
licensed, and thereby whether or not they're unlicensed.
And this is not the final. We're going to see this again at our next board meeting, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other?
Make a motion that we develop this legislative proposal language to address the problem summarized in this proposal, and also to work with industry to hopefully get something that can work for everyone involved.
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Okay, the third one we're looking at is BNP Code Section 7068.1, supervision and control of a contractor's business. Dave called a task force meeting that I sat in on, in which this, Dave Diaz was there too, a specific issue, and a lot of it stems out of the fact that there's companies that you can go out and basically buy a licensee for your company, and this is dealing with making sure that the qualifiers are complying with supervision and control requirements. And there's some real specific things in here to ensure that that is. Dave, or do you want to go through them, or Dave, or?
Dave has alluded to this a little bit earlier, so I'll just go ahead and let him expand on it if he wants to.
If I could just make a couple comments.
Yeah.
It really does 2 things. One, it closes a loophole in the law. We're not trying to change what the duties and responsibilities are at all. It has no impact on that. But yet, the way the law reads today, if somebody's a silent or absent qualifier, we can't take action for them not being involved until consumers are harmed. And we've had them come in and meet with us, and they tell us they're not involved, and they're not doing anything to get off the license. These licenses are still operating without an active qualifier. So we should be able to take action before consumers are ripped off. That's the first thing. And the second is, we talked about Avi Gosselin, we talked about the 5 that pled out. Well, those qualifiers on those licenses aren't being charged with anything. And yet they're the ones that are responsible for getting these licenses in place that these consumers relied on. And I'm not arguing they should be guilty of charged with a felony, but at least it should be a misdemeanor when something like that happens. The DA should have something that could be charged.
Right now, there's no real mechanism. You can go after the bad operator, but there's no real stick that prevents somebody from signing on and being the qualifier. And this will put some teeth in the fact that maybe you want to think twice before you put your name out there.
Do we have a motion, or any questions from the board members? Do we have a motion? Lisa?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So approved.
Okay, number 4 has to do with BMP Code Section 7085.5, arbitration. And again, the language on these needs tweaking, and a lot of the stuff in here has to do with some of the discussions we've had with Karen Hughes. But one of the discussions has been to build into the language that arbitration is, the arbitrator is not to be making decisions relative to attorney's costs. And apparently some issues have come up with that, and we'll just defer to David.
I can see David wants to speak on this.
But I don't have to.
Yeah, I would love
I would
it.
like to. Well, it's just a concern when these are small dollar, many of these arbitrations, and these homeowners are going into the process without an attorney, and the contractor will often bring an attorney. And one thing we weren't aware of is that the arbitrator is rendering an award, and in most cases they're specifically excluding attorney fees, and they're doing that so that the prevailing party can go civilly to recover them. And the examples that we've recently seen seem grossly unfair to these homeowners. They could lose $1, and yet they could be on the hook to pay $7,000 or $8,000 in attorney fees. And so we're just thinking for the viability of this program that's to benefit consumers, it's a one-day hearing, but we would like to make it known that if your intention is to recover your attorney fees, you should not participate in this program. You should go to another arbitration provider or have this heard civilly. We would like to see them excluded. We don't know of one situation where a consumer has gone after a contractor for attorney fees. It's the other way when the consumer loses.
And I will tell you, from the arbitration that I took part in, I didn't really see that the attorneys added value. The parties did a very good job of taking care of it themselves, and the attorneys were really pushing paper.
Just in addition, the arbitration meeting I went to, it was similar to what you're saying. They didn't have an attorney, but they had an expert witness on the contractor side. But after the bickering back and forth, it can't turn out to be an admirable process. And at the end, everybody shook hands and was pleased with it. So I was happy to be a part of that.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we amend Business and Professions Code Section 7085.5 to clarify and refine various provisions of the section. The changes proposed will further clarify the process for homeowners and contractors. Additionally, the proposed changes are more in line with current case law and best practices.
Well said. Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Okay, number 5 is Business and Professions Code, Section 7114, aiding and abetting unlicensed activity. And as you can tell from the language, this yet again comes from our esteemed enforcement division over here. So,
Mr. Chair, this is just cleanup language. A few years ago, we went to the legislature and we got approval for the registrar to order a licensee to make restitution to a consumer when that licensee has in fact committed aiding and abetting. In so doing, there was a reference to the citation sections of the law, rather than also including the instance where we may want to revoke a license and in the revocation process order restitution. So we're simply stating that we want to include any action that the board takes as a cause for ordering restitution. This is just a housekeeping matter, really.
Any question from the board members?
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? So approved.
thank you. And then,
Before we move on, I noticed that in the legislative committee meeting minutes, I wasn't noted as being present by a telephone conference.
That's because you weren't.
Was it? Okay.
Weren't what? He was not what?
Not present.
all
I'll
right.
explain it later.
There's another item that wasn't on the initial list that was added later, and this has to do with amending BNP Code 7141, the delinquency renewal fee. And this came from licensing, so I'm going to ask Karen to follow up on this.
Sure. Okay, this concept for this proposal was approved by the board at its last meeting, and we are seeking to address a problem that arises often when a licensee submits his or her renewal and fee in a timely manner, but for some reason the application is incomplete. It's usually because someone forgot to sign it. When we then reject it, if they don't get that renewal back before the end of that expiration period, now they're on the hook for the delinquency fee on top of it. So what we had proposed, initially what we had proposed was a 90-day grace period just for that fee. We've shortened that to 30 for a couple of reasons. First of all, we think 30 is probably an appropriate amount of time to allow someone to return the form, and it's consistent with our new workers' comp recertification law. That allows 30 days. So we were trying to make the two kind of go hand in hand. So you have down here some proposed language, which, as Mike points out over and over, is always subject to change, but here was, our best shot at this, which will allow someone who submits their renewal initially on time, pays the fee, but it has to be rejected as long as they get it back within 30 days of the expiration date. They will not have to pay the delinquency fee. They will still be expired for that time period until we have the acceptable renewal form. They just won't have to pay the additional delinquency fee.
This is very similar to what the DMV does.
Exactly.
Because if you, for example, submit your, well, not that we're the DMV, but if you submit your registration to the DMV and you mail it in, but
You needed smog or something.
you didn't get your smog done, they don't charge you more money,
Right.
but they'll send you a piece of paper saying, well, you have 30 days to get your smog done, or something like that.
Exactly. And there are a couple of boards within the Department of Consumer Affairs that also has a 30-day grace period for the delinquency fee.
So I think it's keeping in line with what people expect on other things. Number two, 30 days, that gives you time to fix your mistake. People that are taking 90, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
It's out of sight, out of mind.
And again, it's usually just somebody forgot to sign the form, because that's basically all that's involved in the renewing
Check
of a
the box.
license. So,
The chair recognizes Board Member Hancock.
You said they would still be expired, however.
correct.
So is this going to mess with any of the legislation heretofore discussed, or therefore?
I don't think so. I don't see any conflict with.
There's no conflict.
I think what Joan's asking is, would they be considered duly licensed, or would there be a gap in their license? Is that what you're asking?
He translates very well.
They're going to be considered unlicensed. And the interesting thing is, it's the only place in the license law where it says that a person is unlicensed. When you're expired, you are unlicensed, and the license law says that. The only place that it does.
There is no substantial compliance in California.
So you're
That's
unlicensed, but we're not going to also charge you extra money for being unlicensed at that moment if you get it back, if you get the renewal back within the 30-day period.
Understood. Are there any other questions from the board members?
So where does that leave this contractor, this gap period, while they're still working on projects?
He's not licensed for
Not
that.
licensed.
So theoretically, they should stop right there.
Existing law.
That's correct.
It's existing,
Correct.
All
it's existing
profits
law.
be disgorged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Wow.
Chair recognizes Ms. Kelly.
This one hit close to home for me because I have a brother-in-law that holds a couple of C licenses. And when he was he went right up to about a week before the deadline, sent his renewal application in with the check, but neglected to sign it. So CSLB cashed his check, sent him a notice that said, hey, you have to get in here before your license is up, basically. And he got the letter after the day his license was up. So he's unhappy, and I heard him whine about this enough to really, for the duration of my lifetime and my marriage, as he is my brother-in-law, I always can look at him and laugh. So it was an absolute pleasure on my part. I feel bad for him because he had to endure the fine, but believe me, it was priceless to watch him whine in front of Ms. Ollinger and Mr. Sands.
I guess I still have this concern. I'm not sure that you answered it correctly, and I don't know if this is a legal question, but I mean, I'm all for this in theory. My concern is if their license is expired and there's they're in the middle of a job and there's an issue with regard to whether they can be paid, can payment be withheld? Maybe you answered that, but I just didn't understand.
For the time that they don't have a
Do they have to disgorge their profits during this 30-day period?
For that period when they're unlicensed, they would be subject to not being paid or disgorgement. That is existing law.
Yeah.
Again, this is
so
a profession.
what I'm saying is this really something, I mean, are we putting out this message by doing this? Hey, we're giving you a grace period. I mean, are we going to have more problems with people coming back and say, you said it was okay, that sort of thing?
Well, we plan on making it very clear. This grace period is only for the delinquency fee, your license, and it will tell them that. Your license will be expired as of the date of your expiration and will not show renewed until we get a completed application. It doesn't change anything that isn't already in current law, other than we just aren't going to hit them with that delinquency fee.
Because we've already cashed the check.
Yeah, I mean, we cash the check now, and then we give them another bill for the delinquency fee, and they pay it. But, and, you know, I guess one could argue they got a sufficient amount of time to send the renewal in. But like I said before, like many of our licensees, I do the same thing when it comes to my DMV renewal. I wait till the last minute to send it in. And given the current economic times, a lot of these guys tell us they wait till the last minute to see if they're even going to get a job before they send the renewal in.
DMV is a little different, though, because DMV operates by postmark, whereas Contractors, the state license board does not.
That's not true.
No, we operate by postmark.
We operate by postmark.
Okay. I wasn't sure of that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So to just recap and then get to a motion is what we're trying to accomplish here is a ministerial issue of the fee, the delinquency fee, not changing the law with regarding disgorgement or any of those other issues. It is what it is. And so we have a motion very specific to that issue that someone can put on the table for me. In better language. So moved. Second. There we go. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? So approved. Wasn't that easy?
If I could just add, Joan, this is a professional industry. They've got to have enough sense to renew their licenses.
Well, for the record, I abstained, so.
Well, that's it for me.
Dump my water on the floor. All right. Lisa, that wraps up your report?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Licensing Committee report. Licensing Committee Chair Ed Lang and Licensing Chief Karen Robinson will give us the Licensing Committee report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the board. The License Committee have not met since the last board meeting. So to dispense with all of that, we will now ask the Chief Licensing Karen Robinson to provide the license update, please.
Okay, thank you.
Also known as Mrs. Robinson.
I have been trying to avoid that. Thanks, Bob, for pointing that out.
Oh, I noticed right away, but it's the perfect moment to bring that up.
Okay, the licensing program update, I'll just briefly hit a few highlights. Page 1, you've got the license application workload. We show the average number of applications received per month, and then we have a comparison chart below of applications received per quarter. I know I sound like a broken record, but applications continue to decline, and you'll see there nothing has changed on that front. On page 2, you'll have the total number of applications received per month. That combines all types of applications. And then the second chart is the total, the number of applications received, and it's broken down by the type of applications. Page 3, the limited liability companies. We began this program, we're coming up on a year now. We implemented it actually December 28th of last year. Since that time, and there's a couple of charts that show you the applications received. Since that time, we've received, as of the end of October, 544 LLC applications. We've issued 155 limited liability company licenses. We're still experiencing a high reject rate on these applications, as you can see from the chart above. And the companies are experiencing some very lengthy delays at the Secretary of State's office in getting the statement of information in their system. And until that goes into Secretary of State's system, we can't issue the license, or we can't accept the application. So hopefully, with more time under our belt, we'll get some of these bugs worked out. Perhaps even the new instructional video on how to fill out the application. We make some references to LLCs. There are a few different requirements, but hopefully some of those people will watch that video and get some pointers, and we can cut down on our reject rate here.
Karen, I just had a quick question. You know, when we first looked at this, we didn't think there were going to be that many, and it sounds like there's an awful lot more than we anticipated. Is that, do we know why? Is it just that, why? I mean, those bonds are $1 million to $5 million.
Right. Well, thankfully, it's less than I had anticipated. I was really worried that we were going to have all our corps wanting to transfer over. Yeah, 544 is a little bit higher than some people were projecting, but it really hasn't caused us any problems. We're able to stay up on the processing with those applications. Yeah, you would think that the bonding requirements might be, you know, a detractor there, and but apparently not to 544 people. We've got the disposition of applications on page 6. It just shows where in the process all these applications are, whether they were issued, voided, or are still pending for some reason. I won't go out for the processing route. I think everyone knows that. Page 8 is the fingerprint, the criminal background unit stats. We're going into what, our 7th year of, or 8th year of fingerprinting. Since that time, we have received information on 268,374 individuals, and over 47,000 of them had a criminal background. We've denied just over 1,100 applications total since we began the program, and issued 1,251 probationary licenses. The Licensing Information Center, first chart shows a comparison of the third quarter for 2011 as compared to 2012. You'll see our call volume has gone down some, and fortunately the wait time has also gone down some from the same quarter of last year, as well as the calls abandoned. We do see increases at the beginning of each quarter in the call volume and the wait times, and it's usually due to the workers' compensation policy renewals. We just had a big one in October when the processing units kind of get backlogged. When they're inundated with these, the calls go up to the call center. But the call center is holding its own. We hired one new full-time program technician, too, who started in November of this year, started last month. And we're recruiting to fill 5 additional vacancies, 3 for the call center and 2 for the front counter. Hopefully, we'll have all 5 of these filled by January. We continue our training program with the call center. This past summer, we did the board orientation training. It's even more than that, board orientation and licensing processing training. It's a very in-depth training program. It lasts about a week. We plan on doing that again in January as new staff come on, especially in the call center. This seems to be really beneficial in getting them trained. I've mentioned the call center processing email box for the urgent processing. That's still going along well, and contractors seem really pleased with this increased service. The licensing information call center stats are shown on page 11. The judgment unit, they process all judgments and outstanding liabilities submitted to the board. David had mentioned earlier about the amount of money that we are instrumental in helping collect when it comes to not only judgments and payment of claims, but outstanding liabilities, which we receive from EDD, FTB. And you can see the stats there that show the number of liabilities received and the total savings. On page 15 is a chart that shows the total savings public for all types of judgments, payment of claims, and outstanding liabilities. Pages 16, 17, and 18 just show our processing times. That just indicates how many weeks when a document comes in the door, how many weeks it takes for staff to pull it for processing. And well, I'll just go into the testing update. On pages 1 and 2, there are some new charts that show the stats for the examination administration unit. The first chart shows the number of examinations scheduled from November 2011 to October 2012. The next chart, and that shows all the examinations scheduled. The next chart breaks it down by test site, the number of examinations scheduled during that same time period and at which test site they were scheduled. In September, the testing division implemented a new policy regarding the time that applicants are allowed for their examination. Previously, they were given 2.5 hours for each exam, and anyone who needed more could request an additional hour. Now everybody is given 3.5 hours for each part of the exam. The Norwalk and San Bernardino testing centers are going to be used by the Department of Consumer Affairs to train other boards on the new Breeze software. Each of the centers will be used twice a week for training for 3 weeks. And this will be the first time these centers have been used for training purposes. The examination development unit staffing, they still have 1 vacant training specialist position, and they're working to reclassify the position based on workload changes. As you know, the exam development unit is responsible for the occupational analysis and development of, I believe, 45 different examinations. On page 4, you can see which classifications are currently have an occupational analysis in progress and which classifications have the new examination development in progress. And finally, the other highlight in here is the exam development unit is also assisting DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services to do on a couple of occupational analysis projects involving the Board of Behavioral Sciences and the Board of Veterinary Medicine. Apparently, due to staffing shortages at DCA, they didn't have the staff to complete these projects, so our staff stepped in and is helping out. And that concludes the testing update, unless there's any questions.
Very good. Board, you just heard the licensing and testing updates. It's for information only. If you have any questions, please raise them at this point. Seeing none, we will move on. In your packet, H3. Okay. You have the background information on legal opinion on issues of asbestos certification. This issue was discussed at the board's strategic planning meeting earlier this year and appears in one of our objectives for licensing. Karen Robertson will provide a brief summary of this issue.
Okay. You have in your packet just basically a summary that I put together, which summarizes Don Chang's very well thought out legal analysis, I might say. So the question is, may a licensed contractor that holds the CSLB asbestos certification perform asbestos removal in a class that is not held by the contractor? This came to our attention earlier this year when a C2 insulation contractor with the asbestos certification did a roof removal and abatement on a public school. We began, as we investigated this and started looking into this, it seems there was a lot of misunderstanding in the industry as to what that asbestos certification really meant. As you know, the asbestos certification is not a license in and of itself. It can only be added to an existing license. For those reasons, we believe that it was the intent that the certification was to basically complement that particular classification and allow them only to perform asbestos removal and abatement within their particular classification. So to get authoritative clarification on this, I asked Don Chang to look at this matter and to prepare for us a legal opinion, which is in your packet. So in addition, and if there are any questions regarding that, luckily Don's here and he will answer. In addition, today I handed out this letter from Frank Rettel of the Association of Environmental Contractors. I received that earlier this morning, and he unfortunately couldn't make the meeting, but he wanted to submit this letter. Don and I have had a brief discussion on it, and Don, I'm going to turn it over to you to comment on what's contained in this letter, because it's somewhat contrary to what we are suggesting.
Basically, the letter somewhat agrees with my opinion. Kind of recognizing that, within the specialty certifications, an asbestos certification does not authorize, practice across a licensed specialty. However, what they argue is that for purposes of a general engineering contractor or a general building contractor, that the asbestos certification should allow them to do all types of work across different structures. In part, I agree. In part, I don't. Again, as with my original opinion, I think the asbestos certification authorizes the licensee to practice within their particular scope of what is authorized by their license. Similarly, for a general engineering contractor, they would be allowed to do asbestos removal under their certification to the extent that it relates to a fixed work, and it also relates to that fixed work requires specialized engineering skill and knowledge. Similarly, with respect to a general engineering contractor who has an asbestos certification, I believe they would be authorized to remove asbestos to the extent they could take a contract that involves two or more unrelated skills, and or to the extent that they could take a contract and they are either licensed specifically in that specialty area or they subcontract it to an appropriate licensed subcontract. So again, that's how I would read that. But I think they're reading that basically based upon historical perceptions that general engineering contractors or general B contractors should be allowed to do all sorts of remediation work for asbestos if they're so certified is not warranted or supported by the law. Questions?
Okay, thank you. At this moment, I request that the board adopt as policy that a licensed contractor who holds an asbestos certification is registered by the Division of Occupational Safety and Health may perform asbestos-related work only in the license classification by which he or she is licensed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved.
Thank you. Let's go to agenda item H4, and it's in your packet. As provided under Business and Professional Code, on an annual basis, the board awards grants to qualified public post-secondary education institution for the support of courses of studies and construction management. You have in your packet the registered notice of intent to award grants pursuant to this act. And that's under, anyone have any questions before? It should be quite clear. Oh, it's one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got stuck on that. Anyone have any questions? Hearing and seeing none, I would move that the board approve the registrar's notice of intent to award grants.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So approved. And Board Member
That ends
Lang?
my report.
Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is Executive Committee Report. Chief Deputy Registrar Cindy Christensen will provide the update for the following two agenda items. Cindy?
Thanks, Paul. The first thing is the personnel update, and I'm pleased to report that the Department of Consumer Affairs has really stepped up their efforts in assisting us to get people hired faster. So we haven't been losing a lot of employees to other agencies because they were able to get them on board quicker. So that's really been helpful. What we are working on, however, is getting David a deputy chief. As you directed, he really needs that assistance so that he can go out and do other jobs working with his LATF and JESF so that it can support the board's efforts in going after the underground economy better. So that's our number one priority in HR right now. As far as vacancies, like I said, they have gone down. In business services, we do have a few things that we're always doing to our facilities, offices throughout the state. Contracts are always ongoing. The one contract I do want to bring you up to speed, though, is we had requested the purchase of, I believe, 11 vehicles. And I think that was moved down to 9, but then we also got a vehicle from, who was it, David? Lands Commission. And so that one should be coming shortly. I believe it's a 2003 Taurus. But I know. So I'll check on that, but when she was talking about her Taurus earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, just what we need. But until it's been approved for those cars to be purchased by the board. However, there is no state contract, so we cannot really get those cars at this point. And then the other thing is we do have cars sitting in our pool that will be surveyed once those cars come in. So although it will help some as far as having newer cars, probably the number of cars probably won't change much. The other thing we've been working on is the issue of travel claims being processed in a timely manner. And it really impacts our staff that are out in the field, because what happens is that they can request a travel advance so that if they have upcoming travel for the month, then they can get that money ahead of time so that they have money to pay their credit cards or whatever. But what's been happening is the travel claims have been delayed, so if you have a travel claim outstanding, that has to be cleared within 30 days. Sometimes they aren't processed in a timely manner, so you cannot have two outstanding travel advances at the same time. So they have the 1 month that they're trying to get the travel claim processed for, but they need to travel the next month, and they need to get the money for that, and that comes out of their own pocket. Where that really hits our enforcement investigators is if they do have to rent a car from, say, Enterprise, the fuel expenses come out of their, they have to pay for it, the credit card. They can't use a state credit card. And so there again, if they request an advance. And so we've been going back and forth with them, and it seems to, I'm hoping that it's kind of come to a head. They seem to agree with us that they aren't being processed timely, and we're trying to get down to little logistical words of what constitutes a completed travel claim. Because to me, it's completed the second a supervisor signs off on it. But to them, I'll give you a good example of something that happens. We have to put on our travel claims, they're all electronic, and you have to put the month and year. So it's like Robinson, November 2012. Well, if you abbreviate NOV, it gets kicked back. So what happens is, at the end of that 30 days, they kick it back to you saying, oh, you didn't spell it right, so that 30 days starts all over again for them. So although they're arguing that they are processed timely, our staff are saying, wait, I've been out my money for now 3, 4, 6 months, just over logistics. But they have a new manager, and she gets it, and she's really working with their staff, giving us status reports on where they are in processing travel claims. So I hope that the people out in our investigative centers and in SWIFT, if you do have problems, please let us know so that we can bring it to her attention.
Cindy?
Yes.
A thing about the cars, one of the important things on this piece of paper, if you missed it, is if they rent a car and go to Enterprise, then they have to use their own gas and put it on a travel claim. But if they're using a staff car, they can use the Voyager card. So
Right.
One of the things that you guys are trying to clear up is if they have to rent a car, that they can just use the Voyager card to put the gas on it, so they're not being a bank for the state.
And we keep saying they're working on it, and we haven't seen those Voyager cards come through yet. So that is just another item on our list. Any questions on business services contracts or personnel? Then moving on to Breeze. There has been a delay on it. The first phase did not go as well as, I know, everybody's shocked. But
Really?
they're working hard. I think the management team over there, consisting of Amy Cox-O'Farrell and Jason Pichon, they're really holding the contractors' feet to the fire, and they are not signing off on things just to sign off so that the contractor can get their money. And so they're really trying to get a firm date as to when that phase 1 will go live. They're looking at, right now, late February of 2013, and I hope that date comes to fruition because it keeps pushing our date in phase 3 out and out. And they are very concerned about phase 3 because they have the most complex boards in that release. And if they are experiencing difficulties, it's the data conversion. That always holds everything back. Workers' comp insurance, that's on track to be implemented January of 2013. They have been working on IWAS to do a full implementation of automated files for this year. On page 4, just an update on staff recruitment. Probably our biggest news is we have somebody that's going to be replacing Jason Pichon, and his name is Raju Saw, and he'll be overseeing the technical support unit, and he'll be reporting to Amy as far as his IT duties. And we've had a few retirements that have been very critical. Debbie Phelps and Debbie Brandon, they've known our systems. I believe it's licensing and enforcement that they were very critical in. And I hope, due to the cross-training that Amy has put into place over the past couple of years, that it'll be a smooth transition. Moving on to the budget report. It's still pretty early in the year. It's 3 months in. The update that you have is through September 30th. Everything's on track in terms of expenditures. Revenue, nothing major to report there either. That's, like I said, it's very early in the year. As far as our fund condition, projecting out to 2014 to 2015, because we haven't been able to spend money, we will have an ample reserve to get us through then. And page 3 gives you the construction management education account, and that balance is dwindling, and I'm not quite sure what happens when there's 0 left. I don't know. I guess it just goes away.
Wait till you have more.
What's that?
You wait till you have more.
I guess till it builds up. And then the next couple of pages that you have here is just a snapshot, big picture of giving you how many applications have been received over the past 4 years. For comparison, you've got original licenses. It also indicates how many complaints by fiscal year, position vacancies, and as you can see, we are doing better than we were last month. And on the last page, a graph just showing you how the fee increase revenue is impacting our revenue and our renewal and license application revenue. And it's always nice to see in a graph, but as you can see, on the blue line, as it goes up, it's really not because we had more people paying the renewal fees, it's just because of the fee increase. Yes?
Mr. Chair?
Chair recognizes Pastor Carter.
When does the state, we made a loan to the state, right? When do they start paying us back?
They already
did.
They did?
They already did, yeah.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm. I think they had to pay it back before we got our fee increase.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you look on page, let's see, where was that? If you look on page 2, if you look in fiscal year 2011-12, you see the transfer from the general fund of $10 million. It's this.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay.
it. Okay.
So,
And any other questions for Cindy?
Oh, I have one question, and I think I'd like to commend the registrar and his staff for running a tight budget. And it looks like on page 1, we're about 25% to the good, but going into the last 6 months, am I right? You had 74% unused. So if you look at another 50%, am I looking at that right? See, at the end of December, was this September?
yeah, it's at the end of September. We have 74%.
Sorry, my fault. I was thinking it was December, and you had 6 months to go.
He was drawing accommodation.
Not as good as you thought.
Okay. Point well taken, but yeah. Now I have to use another divisor in here.
Never mind.
All right. So any other questions on the executive committee report? All right, then. We move on to Steve Sands handling a review of the tentative schedule.
And the strategic planning objectives, as you know, we're contracted with a department to do strategic planning. That process will start in January, so look for some emails in January to tell you what the process is going to be. Real quickly, looking through the objectives, I'll give you a very quick update on the current year. Objective number 1, we're moving back to the first or second quarter of 2013. If you have any questions, each one let me know. Number 2. First quarter, it's going to be effective January 1st, 2013. Number 3, second quarter 2013. 4, first quarter 2013. 5 is done. 6 is done. 7 is done. 8 is done. 9, first quarter 2013. 10, we're on target, should finish this quarter. 11 is done. 12, we're on track. 13, we're on track. 14, probably third quarter, 2013. 15, we're still on track with that date. 18 is totally out of our control. We're not too far for an IT project. We're doing okay. Third or fourth quarter probably. And that'll dictate what number 17 is. 18, we're on track for that. We'll submit our 8th attempt to get a PCP for our subsequent arrest unit. 19, we're on track. And 20, we're on track. For the tentative schedule, February 26th board meeting, we're looking for a location in San Jose. April 23rd, 24th will be our strategic planning session. We'll be in San Diego. And June 11th will be in Orange County. It'll be a joint meeting with the Nevada board. Are there any questions regarding strategic planning or board meetings? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Being no comments, the meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.